Hi everyone and welcome back to the Crafty Yellow Camper, and I just thought I'd pop on and do a very quick YouTube video for you. I am very behind in my Christmas crafting, and I am bulk making Christmas cards at the last minute. So I wanted to show you a couple of cards that I have done casing somebody else's cards. So I'm just going to bring in the first couple. So this is a card that was made by my lovely friend Karen Henderson at Furry Cat Designs. Now, each time we have a new catalogue come out, there are a group of us demonstrators that have all known each other for years, and we all, well, most of us, take part in a swap to give other people some inspiration with new items that come out in those catalogues. So the two cards I'm going to show you today were both for the autumn winter catalogue. Now I know that that is nearly at an end, but if you're anything like me, you've got bits and pieces to use up. If you're anything like me, you are behind with your Christmas cards. I'm sure most of you aren't. I am. So I needed some quick cards that I could make in a jiffy. So this card, really lovely card by Karen, and thank you, Karen, for your swap. And I've used this to make this for the idea. So you can see it's very similar. The card layout is the same. I've used the same embossing folder that Karen's used. I've used a very slightly different greeting and punch, which are actually a retired one, and sort of changed it up a little bit. So the base is, I'm not going to make this one, by the way, I'm going to show you another one. The base is basic thick white, and I've embossed that using the Snowfall 3D embossing folder. The papers are papers that I've got left over from the Winter Meadow DSP, and so for any of you that are watching this that don't know what DSP means, it means Designer Series paper. So I've then used some vellum, which I've die cut using the deckled circle dies. Karen, I think, had probably punched hers out, and hers is a little bit smaller. Hers is behind the polar bear there, mine's behind the tree. So I made mine a bit bigger using the deckled rectangles, embossed it with the Snowfall embossing folder again, which Karen had actually done too. And when you emboss vellum, the bits that are embossed turn a white colour, which is really nice. And then Karen's used the Walk in the Woods papers, I think. Yes, a Walk in the Forest papers, which I think are now completely sold out. And as I said, I've used some of the Winter Meadow. So I've used Karen's design, and then just sort of changed it up to the supplies that I had. This tree is from the Regal Reindeer stamp set, and I did make some more that had the reindeer on as well. I don't know what I've done with those actually. I tend to try and make, oh, here we go. I tend to try and make 10 cards at a time. So this is the one that I did, the reindeer. The actual stamped reindeer is a bit too big, but the lovely people at Stampin Up tend to give us dies that don't always go with the stamped images, and the tree and this reindeer are both extras, if you like, in the Regal Reindeer stamp set. The greeting and the punch that I've used, they are, as I said, retired. They were from a punch set, I think, that was a few Christmases ago. I actually bought on the clearance rack a couple of years ago, but I like this little merry and bright, it says may your season be merry and bright. I like this little stamp, and the punch was just the right size to fit where I wanted it to go. So you can see Karen put her banner across and she's fishtailed it, and I've chosen to use a stamp instead. Okay, so that's that one. And then the one that I'm actually going to show you how to make tonight is cased from this lovely card, which is by my good friend Anne Ronsky. I think Anne does have a Facebook page. Sorry, I'm just having a look on the slip that came with it. No, she hasn't actually put it on there, but I think she does have a Facebook page, or at least a website. Anyway, so Anne has used these gorgeous note cards, gold edged note cards, and they come with a matching envelope which has got a gold edge on it as well, on the flap, which is really pretty. Again, I'm not sure if these are still available, but twice I've done a Stampin' Up order, and both times I've forgotten to put these note cards on because I've been in a rush and putting other things on. So I thought I'd have a go to see if I could do it myself. How hard can it be, I thought. Now I see why people buy them. It's not an easy technique to master, and I've had a few hit and misses, but I think I might have just about sussed it now, so we're going to give it a go. Okay, so I'm just going to move some stuff to one side on my desk. So this is gold foiled by the lovely people at Stampin' Up. Let me get it out of the bag and you might be able to see it a bit better. Yeah, it's sort of like a dragged brush mark, dry brushed sort of effect. And I wanted to see how I could make that. So after a little bit of consideration, my head went to embossing powder. Okay, so I'm just going to grab some thick basic white, and then I'll show you. Sorry, I thought I'd got everything out and prepared before I came on. Turns out I hadn't. Okay, so this is some thick basic white, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to score it at 10.5. So this is A4 cardstock, because I'm in the UK and that's what we have. If you're watching from somewhere else that has letter size, it's basically half of your sheet and scored in half again. Okay, so I've just cut that piece of basic white into two. Now I like this card because well, I liked it anyway, but it involves punches, which makes life so much quicker when you're bulk making cards. So, excuse me, I just realised there's big bits of fluff on my desk. That means the cat's been up here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is go over this with our embossing buddy. Now, I'm not going to emboss that whole side. I want that sort of dry brushed effect, but I do need to go over it with my embossing buddy, just because that gives a better finish. Okay, and then what I did was I bought in my Versamark, which I'm just going to grab. Now this is just my standard Versamark. We do sell a re-inker for this as well as the Versamark pad. Now this one's getting really old and I'm going to have to replace it soon because it's starting to come out. But if I show you some of the cards that I did before, so you can see on here I caught it with my nail. So the tip there is to hold it by the back of the card when you're embossing it, not try and pick it up along the spine. Okay, this one was a bit patchy. I caught that with the edge of the heat embossing gun. This one I like a little bit better, but it's still a bit patchy. So I then carried on. I will use those. I'll find a way to make those okay. So I then carried on, and this is the card that we're going to make. So on these, I found it was easier to get the Versamark in the place you wanted it if you had the card out flat, whereas on the first ones I tried, I'd already creased it and I had it down like that. So that's why we're going to use it flat. Now, I tried several techniques. I tried starting here and swiping sideways, but then I found that probably the easiest way is to go in this way and not to press too hard. The first few that I did, I put way too much Versamark on to the cardstock. So I'm just going to start at the top. Actually, I'm just going to bring in a piece of scrap paper to go under there so I don't make my desk too sticky. I'll have to ask you to excuse the state of my desk anyway because it's a mess. Okay, right, so Versamark pad, and I just very gently swiped it. Now I did go over the crease and you get a little bit on the back, but that doesn't really matter. Okay, now you can't really see that on the camera, that just looks like white card. So let me put that Versamark's lid back on and I'll bring in my embossing powder. Now this is copper embossing powder, and I tend to tip mine into a Chinese takeaway tub. Just makes it easier to put it on. I do keep it in the tubs within the Chinese takeaway tub when I've finished with it. But when I'm working, I tend to just leave it in the tub. And then all I'm going to do is get it everywhere, because that's what I usually do. Just sort of scoot that down, and you can see I've just got that sort of brush mark effect on there. Now I did want a little bit more down the bottom. That obviously I didn't get enough Versamark there, so I'm going to give that a good tap, good flick off, and I'm just going to bring my Versamark back in and give a little bit more. And I will pick up the powder. That pad's had it. I wouldn't recommend that you go back over, because you will pick up embossing powder on your Versamark. That's a bit better. Okay, so it really is less is more with this technique. Okay, and as you know, a little bit of embossing powder goes a long way. Now, heat embossing was one of the things I first fell in love with. I'm going to have to put my heat gun on, so I'm talking close to the phone, so hopefully you can hear over it. I'm just going to warm it up. Heat embossing was one of the things I first fell in love with when I started getting more into crafting and making cards and things, because it's just like alchemy. You know, we've got a little bit of sticky ink, we've got some powder, and then we heat it. Okay, so now I'm going to recommend you heat from underneath. I can't really get this in the frame because my heat gun is too long. Actually, can I try and get it in like that? No, I can't. I need to hold it over the side of my desk. I'll bring it in and show you when it starts to melt. Okay, so I recommend heating from underneath. Your card will warp and will distort, but it's easier to straighten it out if you start by heating it underneath. It also doesn't blow the powder everywhere. Okay, I'll just do a little bit more of this, and then I'll try and get it under the camera so you can see. Okay, so you can see there that the powder is starting to melt. Can you see it's shiny? And the dull powder is the powder we haven't melted yet. So I'm just going to carry on. It does take a little bit longer when you're heating from underneath. And as I said before, it's always a good idea to heat your heat gun up before you show it to the paper or cardstock, whatever you're using. The only exception to that is when you're heating on glass. So I have heat embossed successfully on bottles and jars and glass tea light holders, but you don't want to put a hot heat gun onto a cold glass bottle or jar or whatever it is. So make sure that whatever you're using, if you're using a glass bottle, has been out in room temperature for some time, preferably in a warm room, before you attempt to go anywhere near it with a heat gun, because it will shatter. I haven't actually had it happen to me. It actually happened to my mum with a Pyrex casserole dish. She, where my parents live, they don't have any central heating, and she was making a vegetable dish that her and my dad used to enjoy, and the dish was cold because the kitchen was cold. She put the hot ingredients into the Pyrex dish, which should be oven proof, and it shattered into about 1 million pieces. Luckily she wasn't hurt, but that's how I know cold glass, warmth, do not go. Okay, so that embossing powder is melted. Hopefully you can see that there, and you can see there's a little bit of distortion on my card. So the reason I said start from underneath is that I'm now going to heat it from the top. That will make sure that any last little bits of powder that haven't melted melt. So I think they all have, but it should hopefully help take the bend out of the card. You might have to turn it over a few times. So you can see I'm on the inside of the card again, and that should take most of the bend out of the cardstock. Heating it up always warps it a little bit, and then if you heat it on the other side, it should take the worst of the bending out. Okay, that'll do for now. Okay, so that's all dry. My other tip for you is, if you are heat embossing, don't touch it as soon as you've melted it, because it will stay movable is probably the best way of putting it. And if I was to stick my, I mean, this is dry now, but if I was to stick my thumb in the middle of that when I'd first heated it, you would get a thumbprint. Okay, so I'm going to fold that card in half, and we've got a little bit on the back. That doesn't matter. I think it adds to it, actually, if anything. Shows the pattern goes all the way around. Now, as I said, less is most definitely more. If I compare that to some of my first attempts, so this is the one we've just done, and it just gives that little bit of shimmer. And these are the ones that I did to start with, and you can see they are quite messy. As I said, that one was a scrape of the nozzle of the heat gun, so pay attention what you're doing. This one, for some reason, the powder just didn't stick there. And this one's got way too much on. But I will use those. I will find a way of using those. Okay, so you can see these are still a little bit warped, but I've got them stood under a pile of punches, and they'll soon straighten out. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do now is I'm going to bring in a piece of designer series paper, which is what this circle is here, and I'm using a 2.5-inch circle punch. I think, oh sorry if I just knocked that, I think when Anne did hers she used a 2 3/8, but it's not much different. Now I have got Christmas papers left, but some of my Christmas papers have got gold on them, which obviously to put with copper isn't going to be great, and some of them are florals, which I've already used and I haven't got much left of, and others are the polar bear ones, which are lovely. But I fancied a change, so I thought, what can I use? And I hadn't got any more Christmas papers that would go with this. And then I remembered I'd bought this. Now this is the Stargazing 12 by 12 paper, and that goes with the space stamp set that's in the annual catalogue. But I really liked these papers. Okay. So I'm just going to punch out, oh sorry, that's what's on the other side. I'll show you some of the other papers in a second. So I've punched out a 2.5-inch circle using my circle punch. Oh, look at that. And I've caught the corner. Okay, top tip here. If that happens and you caught the corner of another circle in this card, don't despair, because we're going to cover that side up anyway. So there's no need to waste it. Okay. Right, so I've also got some strips. Now this is a 2 centimetre strip of Starry Sky, because the papers have Starry Sky in them. And all I'm going to do is just take the corner off that, just to give it a little bit of interest. And Anne did that on hers as well. Oops, sorry, I can't put my snips back in. Actually, let me bring Anne's in and pop that there so you can see it. So I'm going to take it out of the cello bag so the camera's not shining on it too much. Okay, so there's Anne's. So what we're going to do, I'm going to glue this down. So I'm just using Tombow. I've got a new Tombow out and I'm getting too much out. I think there's an optimal time with Tombow, and I think it's not full and not empty. Okay, and I'm going to stick that strip down. Now I've put mine a little bit lower, but you'll see why in a second. So Anne's note card is actually smaller than a standard C6 card. So I've put my strip a little bit further down to give me a little bit more room. And then I'm just going to stick on our circle of the Stargazing cardstock. And remember, where we've got that little bit that's punched out up there, we want that up there. It's not going to matter. You're not going to see it. Okay, so I'm just going to press that down. And then what we did is we need a greeting. So I have got a piece of, oh, actually that's cut to the right size for a card, a piece of basic white, and I've chosen to use the Merry Christmas greeting out of the Regal Reindeer. Sorry, brain freeze there for a moment. I'm just going to give this a clean, because you can see I've got it really mucky because I've been stamping some more of these. Okay, now the thing with these little stamps like this one, where they've got edges, you need to be really careful not to pick up too much ink, not to press too hard, because you will end up with sort of a ghosting around the side. So I'm just going to very lightly, and I'm using copper clay, which is an in colour. I thought that was appropriate to go with the copper embossing powder. And you can see I've just picked up a little bit on the corner there because it's got too inky. I have the same problem with this stamp every time. There we go, that's better. I'm just going to close my stamp set up because I'm terrible at leaning on things, and I'm wearing a Christmas jumper, which is grey, so I don't really want to. And then the next punch I'm bringing in is the 1 3/4 circle punch. Now, I'm very aware that some of these aren't available anymore, these punches. I never get rid of my punches, particularly shapes, but you could use dies. You could use the deckled circle dies, actually. That would be just as nice. Okay, right, so we're almost ready to put our card together. So on this Merry Christmas, Anne used Warm Wishes, which is from the Polar Bear, very cute stamp set. And it's a bit of a bigger greeting, but, you know, use whatever you've got available. I think what I'm trying to say here is I'm casing cards that my friends have made, because I think they're fab. But also, if you haven't got something, you know, have a look amongst your stash, because chances are you've got something that will do just as well. So we're going for our Merry Christmas up there, making sure it's straight. And again, it's covering up that ding that we had in there. And then what I've done, I've got some, this is the reindeer, the standing up reindeer, as opposed to the one eating, from Regal Reindeer. So I'm just going to pop some dimensionals onto the back of that. What did I do with them? I had them in my hand a minute ago. Honestly, so much for a quick video. This is turning into an extended waffle. Oh, I don't know what I've done with them. Anyway, always use your edges. These are the edges on the mini dimensionals, but these bits are a bit bigger, so they'll do nicely. Okay, so I'm going to put one there, and I always use my... I keep hoping Stampin' Up will bring some scissors in that are Teflon coated like these. They're always a good idea to use when you're cutting sticky things, because they don't retain the adhesive on the blades. If you do happen to be cutting sticky things with your normal snips, and you get them gummed up, soaking them in some rubbing alcohol or surgical spirit helps, as does heating them up, but I don't recommend you do that. Okay, so then we're going to put our... So you can see Anne had her polar bear standing on that bit. We're going to put ours a little bit further down because I want to see a bit more of that lovely paper. So there's our Regal Reindeer, and then I'm just going to bring in some sparklies because I think we really need sparklies. Just having a dig to see what I've got. I really should organise my supplies a bit better. Oh, actually one of those might be quite nice. Okay. Again, I might be using retired gems. Here we go. They're what I was looking for. Let's put those away. Okay, so these are the Brush Metallic Adhesive Back Dots. So they are in copper, a sort of dull gold, which I guess is gold, and a dull gold, which I guess is brass. Okay, so, but you can see Anne here has used these little sequins, which were out of the autumn winter seasonal. So again, use what you've got. And I think we'll just stop. Oh, don't do that. For some reason, I've got two pokey tools, and for some reason, this one doesn't like to stay locked in. Oops, the daisy, come on. I'll go one there. And I think we need another one up there. Always put odd numbers on your cards. So we've got 3 dots on there, and I feel like that needs something under the Merry Christmas. So these are the star trinkets that went with the Night Divine suite, and they came in a couple of different sizes, some big ones and some small ones. So I think what we're going to do is just use one of those small ones, and I think that will look quite nice on our greeting. Okay, so there we go. And that, obviously it's basic white, so I don't need to put a panel on the inside. I'll stamp it with a greeting and then I'll write in it. There we yeah, I hope you like it, and I hope you'll give it a try. So again, there's the original, which was actually a note card, and there's the one that I had to go with the copper embossing powder, and I'm quite pleased how that one turned out. Do let me know if you give it a go, and I'd love to see some photos. If you do, you can comment on my YouTube channel, the Crafty Yellow Camper, or you could post a picture on my Facebook page, which is also called the Crafty Yellow Camper. Okay, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all again soon. Happy stamping.